For sports medicine in Summers Point. Good morning, Doc.
Hey, how we doing?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself?
Doing great.
Yeah, you're up early, ready to go?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, ready to go. Another full day.
Nice. Yeah, it's always a full day for you, right?
Yeah, well, it's rugby season, so
Gotcha.
got a nice day for it.
So, yeah, we wanted to bring you on and break down some of these injuries. We just had on Kayani Hindle. She's a senior at Ocean City. Came back from 2 ACL injuries, one as a 7th grader and then one again as a sophomore. Talk briefly about the ACL and how difficult an injury that is to come back from.
It's a very difficult injury. The ACL is the main stabilizing ligament for rotation of the knee. So when the ACL tears, the knee is completely unstable. So not only does it have to get reconstructed, but then while that reconstruction heals, the quad atrophies and the leg becomes completely weak. So not only do you have to regain the stability, you have to regain the strength. So that's why it's such a long rehab and a difficult rehab.
Is that abnormal to see a 7th grader with that kind of injury? I mean, talking 13 years old.
Abnormal. I mean, yeah. I mean, we see them, and more as kids are playing more sports at a younger age and specializing at an earlier age. Unfortunately, it is happening more and more, though it's not the norm.
Is that an injury that's more likely to happen to a female athlete than a male? And if so, why would that be?
It's not necessarily that it's more likely to happen to a female. It's the mechanism of the injury. So generally with men, it's a contact injury. Someone rolls into the knee from the front or from the side, and it's a traumatic injury in the knee, and the ACL tears. For females, oftentimes it's a non-contact injury. So they either jump or landing from a jump, and the ACL tears that way. So it's more the mechanism that's the difference rather than how frequently it happens. And
is it just bad luck? I mean, because obviously these athletes are in great shape, and you wouldn't expect that kind of injury on somebody who's in great shape and playing sports all year round. Does it just come down to a freak injury, bad luck type of thing?
That's a great question, and it's a never-ending source of research in the medical literature. And quite frankly, the answer is we just don't know yet. There are a number of theories out there. One of them is that it's a muscle imbalance issue, particularly in females. Find that their quadriceps are much stronger than their hamstrings. So at the knee, there's an imbalance of force, and that leads them to be susceptible to ACL tears. There's a question of do the hormones have something to do with it? So particularly as girls reach that 13 to high school age, and they're going through puberty and their hormonal changes, does that have something to do with it? There's always luck always plays a part of it, but we haven't quite figured out. And besides luck, what else plays a role?
Talking with Dr. Brian Sokalsky from Jersey Shore Sports Medicine in Summers Point. Doc, what's the tougher part, the actual physical rehab or just the mental strain of having to do that rehab for 9 months?
Honestly, it's about 50-50. The hardest part is the separation from the team, particularly initially. Those first couple months when the pain's the worst, the leg is the weakest, and the athlete can't work out with their team, so they're isolated from their team. So psychologically, it's a very lonely place to be in. Takes a lot of self-motivation to push through those first few months. And, of course, it's painful. The rehab is painful, and it's difficult. So it's probably evenly split between the psychological and the physical difficulties.
Now, when you have an ACL injury and it gets repaired, is it ever back to 100%, or is it the best you can hope for, maybe 85, 90%?
It is possible to get back to 100%. There is definitely a psychological component to it. Not just during the rehab, but afterwards, gaining confidence in that leg and not thinking about it. So a lot of times, you'll hear, especially on the professional ranks, you'll hear the announcer say, "Well, the athlete didn't really come back until their second year because the first year they're still thinking about it and they're still protecting it and still kind of hesitant. And once they have that full confidence and they stop thinking about it on the field, that's when they really tend to get back to 100%."
Doc, Cole and I were talking in the beginning of the show about how the Philadelphia Eagles just drafted a cornerback who blew out his Achilles in March. Mm-hmm. So basically, I guess he's going to be sort of a medical redshirt this year. How tough of an injury is that for that particular position, which requires a lot of backpedaling, a lot of torque, a lot of different misdirection. So you're really relying on your legs in that position to be everything for you.
Yeah, that's a very difficult injury for a cornerback because the Achilles, the Achilles is the tendon for the big calf muscles, and that position is all explosion. It's all the first 2-3 steps is what is the key to the position. So that's a very, very difficult injury. Fortunately, he's young and otherwise healthy. So the younger you are with that kind of injury, the better they tend to recover. I know. I read some tweets last night after the pick that the Eagles GM Howie Roseman did a lot of research, and at his age, there is the strong potential for him to come back 100%, and it should not affect him long term. So it's a short term sacrifice for what was probably a first round talent.
Right, Doc. For our listeners out there, give us a real brief description, the difference between a ligament and a tendon, because the ACL you're talking about ligament, and the Achilles you're talking about tendon. What's the difference, and what's more difficult to come back from, a tendon tear or a ligament tear?
So it's really the structure that they attach. So a ligament attaches a bone to a bone. So the ACL attaches the femur, which is the thigh bone, to the tibia, which is the shin bone. A tendon attaches a muscle to a bone. So the Achilles tendon attaches the gastroc and the soleus, the two calf muscles, to the calcaneus or the heel. So it's just an anatomical difference as far as what they attach, and they're really one isn't better to heal than the other. It's really which tendon or ligament you tear, where it is, how significant a role it plays in structure and function. So it's not like, I'd rather tear a tendon than the ligament. Obviously, you'd rather tear neither, but it really depends on which specific tendon or ligament you tear.
See that, Cole? You learn something every day. Now, Cole Raring's our producer. His brother is going through a little bit of rehab right now. Cole, what kind of injury did Dalton have?
He had a torn labrum.
So, Doc, give us the rundown on that, and what can Dalton expect here in the next couple of months? I guess he had surgery, in February?
Yeah, he just got cleared, so he's kind of starting to gradually gain back strength and everything like that.
Okay, so I'm assuming it's his shoulder?
Yeah. Yep.
Because there's a labrum in the hip, so I just want to make sure I'm talking about the right structure. So the labrum's a difficult injury because inside the joint, the labrum doesn't get any blood flow. So the labrum cannot heal itself. So generally, depending on, there are a lot of variations of the injury, but generally what they do is if it's a small tear, they'll just kind of smooth out the edges and kind of cut the tear out. If it was a bigger tear and it was fixable, they'll actually anchor that tear down, and so it's anchored in place. So it kind of depends on how much work they did in the shoulder when they were in there. But in general, labrum's a tough injury. You're probably looking at a 4 to 6 month rehab total. So he sounds like he's about 2 months in, and at this point, they're just going to work on regaining his range of motion, strengthening up the rotator cuff, and building the stability in the shoulder. And once the stability's back, they can start strengthening up the whole area.
Now he's looking to play college football, right, Cole, over at Rowan University. What can he expect going into this fall? Is he the type of guy that maybe should think about sitting out a little bit in the beginning, or how should he handle this rehab process?
I can't speak on his case specifically. But mostly because I don't know enough about his injury, but in general, I don't want to speak about anyone specifically. But in general, if you're looking at if you look at the 4 to 6 month recovery window for a labral tear, you're looking at getting back just around the start of training camp in August. So it really depends on how far along an athlete is in their rehab, how strong they are, how stable they are. Obviously, with the shoulder, you don't want to rush things back. If it's not fully stable, a significantly increased risk of injury, also depending on what position the athlete's going to be playing.
Talking with Dr. Brian Sokalsky of Jersey Shore Sports Medicine in Summers Point. Doc, are you surprised that at some of these NFL guys they get drafted first, second round, even if they have what we perceive to be as really bad injuries? I mean, I'm assuming these NFL teams put a lot of time and effort into researching where the guy's at in his rehab and what kind of injury it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just risk benefit ratio. The better the talent, the bigger the risk. The bigger risk you're willing to take in an earlier round. But obviously, with professional teams, these physicians are the best in the country. They have access to all of the patient's records. They have all of his MRIs, all of his X-rays, all of his, if he had surgery, all of his operative reports. So they've got all the information to make an informed decision. But in the end, you never know how the body's going to respond to an injury. So there's always an underlying risk.
Doc, don't sell yourself short, man. You're one of the best in South Jersey.
I appreciate it. Appreciate it, Sully.
We'll let you go, Doc. I know you got to get ready for the rugby game this afternoon, but we appreciate you taking a few minutes and offering some of your insight.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Doc, before you go, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn some more and maybe they need to get something looked at?
Yeah, sure. My practice is Jersey Shore Sports Medicine. I'm a non-operative sports medicine doc. I'm in Summers Point. Phone number is 609-904-2565, and my website is jerseyshore-sportsmedicine.com.
Awesome, Doc. We appreciate it as always. Have a good weekend, buddy.
Thanks, Sully. You too.
All right, that was Dr. Brian Sokalsky of Jersey Shore Sports Medicine.